Okay. Was that easy?
Yeah.
Yeah? No?
In moment.
Some of them were easy? Good. And I'm sure, well, let me see. What was your experience doing that?
There was a lot of room to play. There was a lot of room to try out different ways of looking at things.
Yeah. So it's not really rigid and clear-cut and simplistic.
We kept having to come back to where was it being led, who was the initial leader of it.
Who was leading the charge,
where did it
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was helpful in terms of helping you decide where something lived?
Right.
Okay.
Knowing some of them seemed vague, as in it could go multiple ways depending on what you were deciding about that location.
Right. Okay. Other experiences? All right, well, let's try out a few and see. Does teacher search appear on more than one of these? Mm-hmm. Yes. So we have it in culture and in economics or brotherhood. Someone want to talk about why it belongs in one or the other?
They're wrong.
Well, then tell me why they're right.
I agree that it's confusing, actually, because your teacher search, we found the perfect teacher, yes, but we can't afford them.
Okay.
You know, so it does. It's one of those ones that sort of sneaks across.
So I would like to suggest, though, that the we can't afford them is a budget and a salary structure question, which is actually a rights conversation, but the discerning who is the artist who is prepared to meet this group of children is actually a cultural impulse.
I knew we were right. I was just explaining why.
But in either case, I would say, though, that teacher search, in your example, you talked about salary. And I want to underline, actually, here's what I want to do. I want to cross this word out and just make it brotherhood, right? Because it leads us in the wrong direction, because we in our times associate economics with money, and we have to keep remembering that we're being asked to imagine a time where an advanced economic state is one in which we operate out of this sense of brotherhood. How can we support each other? So the finances for paying a teacher really is part of our contractual rights sphere piece, but teacher search does, in fact, in terms of its leading impulse, finding the right artist for the students is a cultural activity. It's why you often will find a teacher search or committee being handled in the pedagogical realm, manned by a group of teachers. Maybe have an administrative type or an HR person who's a member of the committee, but the actual interviewing and so on has to happen by the teachers. Yeah.
So when one of the teacher search criteria is being able to work together, is that the wrong thinking, the wrong definition of brotherhood, or wrong qualitative?
If you said the most important criteria for a teacher is being able to work together, then that might suggest that you are searching for an activity that lives in the brotherhood realm. But that's
you would already have narrowed it down to 5 really good artists, and perhaps you'd pick the one who was.
Exactly, yeah. I would like to suggest to you for this part of the conversation that searching for the right teacher in the classroom should be something that is primarily decided from a pedagogical perspective and belongs squarely in the pedagogical realm. It's not to say it doesn't have right sphere and salary issues. Doesn't mean that the person doesn't have to be a good communicator with the parent body, those kinds of things. Let's look at another one, compensation. Everybody just had it in one? Yay. Okay. Are there other overlaps? What else do you see here?
Would have to be,
Pardon me?
would brotherhood would maybe overlap.
With compensation?
Yeah. I mean.
Say
they
more about that.
Well, I think just, they would, ultimately, they're guiding things like the budget. So part of that is the compensation, I would say.
Who is guiding?
I can't, as an administrator, you can decide like, well, instead of paying them 40, I'm gonna pay them 80,000. I mean, maybe I could, I don't know.
Maybe you could. But you said something interesting, because the economic sphere was dictating the budget.
Well, they're overseeing like the budgets, things that, what is where. I mean, so maybe they say you have this much to spend, you can spend it however you want.
So let's examine that a little bit. Is the economic sphere the realm of budget? Do we have budget up here? I see it in two areas. I see it listed on the rights page and on the brotherhood page.
It's that word again.
The money word?
The economic word, yeah.
In my opinion, it's that word again. It throws me too.
Yeah. So here's my take on it. A school for a year has an amount of money available to it, $1 million budget. And we have to decide between ourselves how to spend it, right? And so we have lots of conversations with the teachers and community members and talk about how much we can charge in tuition and come up with, appropriate amount for tuition assistance. And there's lots of conversation back and forth and lots of listening. And in the end, we come up with an agreement of how we're going to spend the available dough this year. To me, that sounds very much like a rights sphere activity. I listen to everyone, and then I bring the information back, and we codify our agreement. It's not an associative, interdependent kind of process. It's really a listening and codifying process. And I think this economics word throws us all off on the wrong path. So we really need to keep this higher ideal of the economic realm being one of brotherhood, of association in front of us, and not focus on the money piece as being the primary indicator. Okay, fair enough? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So a budget is a social contract? No?
I can see your perspective. I'm struggling with it a little bit because I do see a lot of interdependence in the creation of our budget and how we work together, even with people outside of our organization that impact our budget, and a lot of back and forth that happens. And I can see even in the management of the budget, imagining having to going back out and really working together in that realm of brotherhood.
Well, certainly in your budget, to the extent that you have fundraising income planned in there, and you're going to have to go outside and apply for grants and do those kind of things, you're working with the much larger community there. But that is a brotherhood activity that's feeding a line of the budget. Budget itself, I think, though, is the agreement that we end up creating within the members of the school community about how we're going to allocate available funds.